Beckham. Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it!
I can't believe it. Football, bloody hell.
Hi, hello and welcome to the Magnificent 24 Reds. My name's Jody Alexander. I'm your host today. It is an absolute honour and pleasure to introduce to one of our first guests today, who is actually a astounding journalist. We're actually going to be talking to the one and only Jacques Talbot, who is basically known for his stories on Newcastle. He's a chief football correspondent at Transfer.com, also the Time Sport, Guardian Sport, Anfield Watch, Who Scored, the SPTT, and Live Score. Now, Jack has broken some absolutely amazing stories recently, and one of his amazing stories recently broken in the last few days is the Jadon Sancho transfer saga, with him moving on and what's been going on and developing with that. So, in further ado, I want to introduce Jack, who's actually I've known now for a little while, who's been absolutely brilliant to come on the show. So, thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
You are most welcome, and thank you so much for coming on to Magnificent 24 Reds. First, I just want to go on briefly about how you started your career.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's I think 2015, and I must have been about 25 or 26, maybe 24, something like that, around that. Call it 25, and I was a bit directionless. I was at university. I was doing like a film course. I wanted to be a screenwriter initially, and then I sort of just went, oh, it's way too hard. And I thought, what's a bit easier? And I remember just thinking, well, I like writing and I like football, and I put them together. And then I started covering a club called Sandbach United, which is in Cheshire. Then I started covering Altrincham. And then I went to a Lancashire club. I can't recall the name of the place at the Wham Stadium. I can't remember their name for some reason, in League Two. Accrington Stanley, that's the one. And it just sort of went from there. Then I decided I didn't want to do football anymore, so I moved to Spain for a bit, and I did crime investigations on the Costa del Sol for a brief period. And then I came back.
Isn't it?
Yeah, no, that was good. It was just it was different, and I didn't know the language too well, so that was always, everything. And going to the shop at 2 in the afternoon, and it's like, why is everything closed? And it's a siesta. And I didn't know what a siesta was. So I was like, why? I think it's like 2 o'clock on a Monday. Things are closed, and I had no idea why. It's because everyone's asleep down there, and had that little break and that. Then I did the Express, Mirror, Daily Star, and during the Daily Star, this is about just over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I just started talking to agents on Twitter, and then just tweeting out transfer stories. This was January before last, and I thought, I should try and monetize this a little bit because I'm just tweeting it for nothing. And I just approached Robin Berinaire, I can't pronounce his name, at Football Transfers, and it just went from there, really. I started doing bits, and here I am sort of 9 months later. I haven't been in the job long, to be honest. Doing transfer stories, and yeah, it's good. It's all right. Yeah, I find them interesting. I find the dynamics interesting. I think that it's very broad now. I think loads of people can do it. You don't have to be a journalist to find information.
True, it's so true.
I was saying this to someone the other day about, doing like an NCTJ, which is a journalism course to become a transfer journalist. And I was like, we don't really need that, because I don't think even football clubs, they don't really care whether it's the Times or the Telegraph. They do still a bit, but not as much as before, because I think people with millions of followers, that's who they're going to give the information to. News is filtered now through the internet via BBC and stuff. And so if you have 2 million followers, you can easily find information. Romanio's got 20 million followers, which is more than Mbappe, so it's a huge industry in it. It's so mad that.
Because I first met you when I was a guest on another show, and we obviously got talking, and you knew my passion was football. And I'll tell my story with Jack. Jack's actually the one who mainly got me involved in football journalism. I spoke to Jack, and he gave me so much advice. Remember those long messages?
That's all right, yeah.
To be fair, I would nag him for like advice how to become a football journalist because it was my passion. You knew how much I love football.
Yeah.
Kind of shown through, and he was like, okay, do this, do that. And you said to me, when you move back, because I was in the Caribbean at the time, when you move back to England, let me know. And I said, you know what? I love football, and I wanted to give Man United supporters a platform. So we created Magnificent 24/7. I thought to myself, hang on, I can still do journalism through this. So it's exactly like I say, you don't necessarily need to go down the mainstream media route. You can actually kind of develop your own thing.
Absolutely. I think even fan media now, I mean, I remember 2016 when Arsenal Fan TV sort of hit the headlines, and I think people still criticise it, and especially the mainstream media were criticising it. It's like, what's this? But actually, I think it's quite raw. And through the monetization of Twitter now, and then as we were talking about earlier, and YouTube as well, like you don't have to go to a newspaper, you don't have to go to City University. If you build your profile enough, maybe even going through like, as you did like a Man United way of doing it or a Club Pacific way, there's no reason why you can't be, make a living out of it and have a lot of fun with it. You don't need to go through university courses.
So true. I mean, we have a certain etiquette and standards and what we do here at the Mag 24/7 and developing it. Obviously, we're obviously working on the website next. There's still more things to come. Now, obviously, one thing we do is spaces as well. Like I told you about earlier, where we do spaces on Twitter, which is now X or whatever it's called. Silly to be honest. But obviously our spaces are what we call a chaos space, which gives you a platform for anyone to come up and speak and say what they want without being shut down, without being rebuked, without being rebutted. So it allows fans to have an opinion. And it's something I think that every fan should have kind of a platform. And yes, we're not doing watch-alongs. I know I think that's brilliant, to be fair, because you kind of can see people's engagement in it. But I think we're at the stage now where we want to have accredited, not journalism, but stories that we can share, having opinions on it. And I think that's important for fans nowadays. Every fan wants to be involved. Every fan now thinks they could be the football manager, the head physio, the doctor of the club, the director of football, the owner, the chief executive. They know better. And I think that's brilliant because before we never really had that fan involvement, did we, like that?
No, I think as well, it's sort of like, I'm not digging out, say, Henry Winter purely because he's probably like the most prominent traditional journalist name, but he'll go around the country and he'll cover Man United, or he'll go to Arsenal. The next weekend he goes to Liverpool, etc. Or maybe there's a big game in Paris for PSG, and he's a good writer and was a great writer and he's a great journalist, etc. But when you have that, he will never have the same insight as someone who's secluded to a single club. If you're a Liverpool fan, they're going to have more in-depth knowledge than Henry Winter just going there for one game. Because it's impossible for him to have that much depth around the club. If you're a fan, you're able to follow. Even from 20 years ago, we had what was it called? CFAX. 332, I think it was. That's all you had. But
333 or something like 330 or something like that.
Oh, maybe it was 302 or something like that. Or maybe 332 was the gossip page, which is quite bizarre how I remember that. But the level of intrigue now and like news is. It used to just be around the manager's press conference. Oh, what was the fallout from that? But now it can come from anything. I don't know if you watched the United Stand, they've got this whole story today. They're really good about this scout who's been, leaking information, and then they might know who it is and stuff. Like none of the mainstream media would cover that. Every facet of a football club now is covered and stretched out, and it's so comprehensive and it's so extensive. And that's what the internet's given us, really.
It really has. I think what it allows us to do also is look at the platform that people have fans. For instance, we've seen the American fan base of what they've brought to United with their groups. You've got the Tampa Bay Reds, you've got the American Red Devils, you've got the group recently that organised the banner to be flown over the Tampa Buccaneers stadium, Glazers out. So we're seeing a platform. For instance, I know, in India, there are the Mumbai Reds that are an official supporters group of Manchester United. They have a platform. And you're seeing a lot of fan channels for a demographic that's never been done before. For instance, I'm going to mention Brown Mundi here, who are friends of mine, and I know them well. They've created a platform for South Asians to have a say on football, and they created that platform specifically so they can develop it. Now, I think that's brilliant, to be honest with you. I know people out in Korea right now that have got, for instance, there's Daegu Reds, for instance, that are creating their own platform. So there's people I know in Adelaide, Australia, who've got their platform. So there's so many platforms that are coming out right now, so everyone can have a say. I think it's absolutely brilliant. To be honest with you, that fans are more involved and heavily involved in the sale of their clubs now than they were ever before.
Yeah, I think long gone are the days where you sort of have to go to loads of games to be a true fan. And I think people like, as you say, in Australia, have like the wake up at 3 a.m. to watch Man United. That's fair enough. And if they can get to a game once every 2 years or something, I think that's absolutely tremendous. So that's one of the positives, I think, of the sort of globalization of certain football clubs, such as Man United, because that's what it is about. It's sort of like a global community, isn't it? And I think it's fantastic that you have these sort of subsections of supporters, which, you know, when they are friendly tours and stuff, and I mean clubs are doing that a lot now. They go to Asia, they go to Australia when that relationship can be built. So it's great. It is good. I think, you know, there's a lot of hit back with the sort of traditional fans and stuff, but I'm all for it. You know, why not make it more globalized and have like fans from every corner? Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to get on to, we've talked about, if you saw that you got your intro, how you helped me get my intro, to be honest with you. I want to talk about, so before we go any further, actually, so if anyone ever wants to be, if I do anything great in life with this, you can always credit it to Jack. So
Thank you very much.
Goes to Jack.
Yeah.
I want to get on to, you broke a transfer story a few days ago regarding Jadon Sancho, and that obviously lit up the entire internet. To be fair, there was a lot of likes, views, repressions, copy and pasting of it, and it went everywhere across the internet. And to be fair, for the whole day, I think when you're talking about trending, at Jacques Talbot was trending ridiculously for the football stories about Jadon Sancho. So I want to talk through the process of that story because, to be fair, I know you don't normally do those kind of these kind of stories. You tend to stick with transfers, but this story was absolutely amazing about the treatment of Jadon Sancho. And we saw Dimitri Mitchell, who's a former Manchester United player, touch upon the other aspects in a video recently about this story.
Oh, really? There's a video involved as well.
Yeah. So, if you go onto the Magnificent 24/7 page, there's a video of Dimitri actually saying he doesn't quote you, but he actually touches upon the story of Jadon
Oh, I
Sancho.
see. Okay, we'll have to have a look at that. Yeah.
It stems from your story on Jadon that it's gone even more viral during another international break. To be fair,
It's with me because I'm not a newspaper. What happens with traditional newspapers and stuff? They have the sort of their own sources than the official club source, which would send their messages without prompt. For me, because of the size I am and the size of football transfers, which is quite minuscule at the moment, you have to kind of prompt sometimes. And my Man United line, if you will, sometimes, you know, every month or so I'll get a bit. But I just thought on this occasion I would reach out about Sancho because it's been so topical at the moment, and I wanted to get his insight into it. And yeah, and you know, I think it's important when you hear information as well, not to just go, well, that's absolute truth and just put it out. And I think you have to kind of be. I mean, I've seen a lot of reports around Sancho, which have been, I think, a bit too much on the nose, really, and a bit too scathing. And I feel like sometimes you can hold. I think it's okay. You don't have to put out everything you hear. You can hold stuff back, which is just a little bit, you know, on the nose, or you know, you're dealing with a 23-year-old kid. I know he's on a lot of money and stuff. So yeah, no, you know, I sort of put out about where it sort of came from, and of course, and I think Mark Goldbridge touched on this story yesterday, and he said he didn't. He said he had more holes in it than a Leerdam cheese or something. Because why would Sancho be annoyed at Antony and stuff? Because he wants to play on the left wing. But the gripe isn't because, oh, he wants to be a starter. It's because Rashford got 30 goals in all competitions last season. Of course, he's not going to be annoyed because Rashford's been flying. Okay, this season's been a bit whatever. But it stems from Antony, regardless of how well he plays, how poor he does, how many chances he misses. He is always chosen over Sancho. And I think that's why, you know, well, what's the point of like getting up? What's the point of like going training? I mean, obviously you can argue with that and say it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse, but I suppose it's a reason why he's, you know, this whole thing sort of started.
Part in it, doesn't it? You know, you could put in 120 in training. A guy turns up, he puts in 50%, but because he's a high transfer and he's not performing on the field or off the field, and his issues off the field we know is very well documented. He's always getting picked. And I watched a damning stat. Actually, Sancho created double the amount of chances despite playing 3/8 of the time of Antony.
Yeah, I mean, as well, I don't. But football agents, what they do, I think they get a lot of criticism about, they're just money grabbers. Not to go too much into that, but what football agents would do, they'll give players a package on a weekly basis, typically, of their stats, how they've done, metrics in comparison to players in the top 5 leagues, or the players who perhaps they're angling in their angling a position for, such as say Anthony. So he may have, it's very possible that the stats you mentioned there about the chance creation, that may have been flagged to Sancho himself. Like, look, Sancho, Anthony's creating much less than you. Why, and that can build into his frustration. But I think it's quite clear that Sancho is a far superior football player than Anthony. But obviously, I suppose it's not all about that. It's about the sort of personality Ten Hag wants, and perhaps that's sort of the reason why. And also the price tag that Anthony, 100 million euros.
Between Jadon Sancho and Antony, when we compare it in pounds, and I think people get exaggerated as 100 million. Man United do not pay 100 million pounds for Antony. Man United paid 72 million pounds for Jadon Sancho. Antony was around 85 million pounds. There's not a huge amount of difference in terms of price tag. To be fair, when you look at the price tags, personally, I think they're overpriced, both of them, in all honesty. But one player gives you more attacking wise, which is Jadon Sancho. But then what Ten Hag wants, Antony does in abundance, which is his off-ball, but you can call almost, I've heard the terminology thrown around, a defensive winger, which is the weirdest. You might get it,
yeah.
Really? Shouldn't you? So I find it weird that obviously that terminology is thrown around.
Yeah,
but
I think
United do now right now? In your opinion, what should United do? Because you have problems with both players now. We know Antony has problems off the field, which obviously have been highlighted with what broke yesterday about Man United staff looking to resign due to the handling of Mason Greenwood and now Antony. They felt that Antony should have been suspended. And these are the stories coming out of Old Trafford, coming out of United and Old Trafford right now, that Antony should have been suspended, or his contract should have been torn up.
Yeah.
And talking female staff that have complained where they don't feel safe. What do United do now with this Antony situation and James? It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a tricky one, obviously. I think as I said, football clubs when they transcend, being Stockport County and you're Man United, and when you're one of the biggest clubs in the world, some would say the biggest, you have to appease shareholders, and that comes through getting your PR right. And so, but then also they have to weigh that against succeeding in matches and stuff. And so it's unfortunately in elite business and billionaire institutions, the morals and doing the right thing is like bottom of the pile, I think. So I mean, in my opinion, in a sort of moral sense, if serious allegations came, such as what was given to Anthony, came to fruition, then I believe that he should be suspended pending the outcome of that, and then an internal investigation. It's unfortunate, but they spent a lot of money on him, etc. But that's the right thing to do. But if you're Man United and you spent all this money and you're competing for Champions League, and I know this sounds like it shouldn't really matter, but it does to these sort of shareholders and stuff. I think they just got to, I don't know, to play him, I guess. I don't know. But in terms of Sancho as well, I mean, it's up to Ten Hag, isn't it, really? Well, he's saying Sancho has to make a public apology, and I don't think Sancho's going to do that. So I have no idea, to be honest. It's a tough one. Sancho, if I was Sancho, I'd sort of be determined to prove the manager wrong. But I don't think he's sort of that character. I think he wants Ten Hag to leave, and then he'll come in. Yeah, I don't know. It's always like a bit of a circus at Man United, isn't it? I suppose, unfortunately, there's always
horrible. I mean, on the Jadon Sancho situation, there's two ways of it. Dimitri Mitchell looks at it from a footballer's point because he's an ex-Man United player that came through the academy, played first team, and then he's doing really well at Exeter right now. Now, obviously, he had his say on the video, and he turned around and said, I think his first line is to attack the media. He doesn't think he's attacking he's attacking the media about scapegoating him, and it's not based upon Ten Hag. We know the media have attacked Jadon Sancho ridiculously amounts because he plays for Man United. On a mental psyche, we know there's only a certain amount players can take. We know we've seen death threats to players, and there's only so much you can take before you end up snapping and saying something back. The problem with Jadon Sancho's post, one, his first part of the sentence, I think he's attacking the media. Second part, he's called the manager a liar. And that shouldn't have been done. If a manager questions you in your terms of your training level, that it's not where it should be, I think the mentality you should have is, actually, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to get on that training pitch. Instead of me running 30 kilometers an hour, I'm going to run 35. Instead of me training for 90 minutes, I'm going to train for an hour, for 2 hours. Instead of me coming in at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be there for 7 o'clock. If I have to watch an hour's game to improve my game, I'm going to do that. But he doesn't seem to have that mentality. And this seems to be the standards at Manchester United right now, where it's very low. Now, we're talking Man United. Now, it's just come out, obviously, where Man United, for instance, signed Antony, knowing that this case was brought in. We signed it before last year, knowing that he had already been under investigation from May 2022. What is going on at Man United with the player liaisons, background checks, psychological checks, that we are signing such low quality? Because I know you're a Newcastle, but when I compare Man United to Newcastle, in the last 18 months, Newcastle have grown exponentially. And people say it's the ownership, but it's not. You have to look at how they're scouting players and what they're doing. How have Newcastle bought players that have seamlessly fitted into Eddie Howe's system? And it seemed like Eddie Howe could be there for 10 years and he will get a tune out of all of them every day of the week, twice on Sunday. What are Newcastle doing that Man United aren't doing in terms of these transfers and the scouting departments?
I'll preface this by saying I am a Newcastle fan, but I'm not going to blow smoke up their ass, because the last 2 years they have been exceptional. But before that, trust me, I've been all over them, calling them shit and everything like that. So yeah, it's culture, isn't it? It's just been culture. And you're absolutely right. Man United are the worst for character checks, due diligence in that front. It's like they have no regard for it. Newcastle, I think Liverpool, even to an extent, they're all about that. They're all about character. They're all about making sure it's the right sort of person. And I'm not, of course, Man United don't do this. Of course, that Man United recruitment team do not do this. But it just seems on the surface, they just look on FIFA ratings and they go, oh, he's quite a famous name. He's like rated a plus 83 on FIFA. He'd be pretty good. And then, you look at the contracts as well. Casemiro, Varane, they're all on above £300,000 a week.
Sancho, Rashford, all above 300 grand. And to be fair, I don't see what value we're getting for money.
And I don't also understand why you're Man United. There is a certain pull to that. There are certain players that dream of playing for Man United. Would have Anthony Martial in 2015 not signed for 100 million? Sorry, £100,000 a week. Why is he on £300,000 a week? Would he have not? Is that Monaco at the time? I'm sure it would have upped his salary significantly. Rasmus Højlund,
15 grand at Monaco.
18 was it?
Yeah, he was very, very small money at Monaco. He was a youngster at Monaco. But I don't understand the size of this. Man United have signed a player, and instead of you putting an 18-year-old, instead of you putting on like 50 grand a week, you give him 100, and then your next contract is 200. Then your next contract now, he's on 300, and he's on 300 for a guy who, 8-9 years now, has only had one season where he scored over 20 goals. One.
It's been, as bad as it is to say, but he's not even been like the worst Man United buy, really. The recruitment at Man United is just absolutely god awful for the money they spent. Bruno Fernandes has been good, but you look at the post-Fergie years, and you're kind of looking, what is a seamless purchase that Man United have played? What was a shrewd bit of business that they did? What was an excellent signing? And you can't really see one. I do think the answer is the director of football. I think Ten Hag is a good coach. I question his recruitment. I think they got scared. I think they realised they couldn't do anything. I think they realised that they've made too many mistakes in buying players. They handed the keys to him. But unfortunately, he has been relatively the same. And I don't know necessarily if Mason Mount was his idea. And I'm not saying Mason Mount isn't a good player or hasn't done well this season. He's been one of the better signings for you. But was he needed for that amount of money? Was he needed when you've got Højlund in, who is doing really, really well? But in hindsight, is a young lad who scored 10 Serie A goals last season. You probably could have done with someone like Sebastian Haller. Or Harry Kane, something like that. Just an absolute, something that's reliable. And he could prove me wrong, and he is proving me wrong. But just the notion of risk was just unnecessary, I think. So Paul Mitchell's out of job he left Monaco now as director of football.
You
So
see me smiling because we've spoken how much previous on another stream how much I admire Paul Mitchell, what he's at Southampton, Tottenham, the Red Bull Project, and Monaco. When Man United hire a director of football, I look at John Mercer. Yes, you've done great in development of the academy, but what experience did you have as a director of football when there were other names at that particular point out there who were miles ahead of you in terms of director of football? What have Man United done? And I come to realize he was an Ed Woodward hire, just a yes man, and nothing's going to be different under him. Even with the Glaze gone, he's still there, and he's still going to be a problem because he's not experienced enough. He doesn't have the contact network in order to, for instance, Ralph Rangnick, Paul Mitchell, where you can find gems, and he doesn't have that network. You may have raided Europe for the best youngsters, but youngsters don't necessarily transfer into first teams, and we know this.
Absolutely. I think, Ralph Rangnick wasn't a good coach. I think but as you mentioned there, the networks he has, and he is a good director of football. So, the plan was to move him up to that position, but I guess Ten Hag wanted his own sort of power and stuff like that to come in. And yeah, I don't know what that person does. Matt Hargreaves does the negotiations and Ten Hag chooses the players. So I don't know what his job is, to be honest. I don't know what it is other than perhaps giving away as much Man United money as possible to players on high wages. Seriously, Julian Ward's going to leave Liverpool soon. I think he's not going to Ajax anymore. There's another one. They just need like a Dan Ashworth, whatever.
He did not sign an NDA for a non-compete. We know Michael Edwards did for a year, so we know Michael Edwards is still free and available right now. And to be fair, if you pick up a Michael Edwards or Paul Mitchell, for instance, I know Luis Campos' contract's coming up to an end soon. So these are terrific signings as a director of football. And we know they're very shrewd in the market. If you look at PSG, since Luis Campos has been there, you can see a direction under them. You can see them going somewhere with what they're buying and what they're building. You look at the goalkeeping, the defense, the midfield, the strikers. Moving on Messi and Neymar saved them close to 2 million euros a week in terms of wages. And moving those players on, now you've brought in Dembele. Dembele's not on big money at PSG. People think it was big money, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's actually very, very small money. And they moved out a lot of high-paying players, and they've actually bought players who are hungry for success on less money. And I think Man United are looking to adopt the same procedure. But I think right now, when I look at that Man United team, I look at Varane, I look at defence, and I'm like, Luke Shaw's been there 8-9 years. This is as of 2024, summer 24, will be 10 years till the day till we signed him. 10 years. And out of that 10 years, how many years of those have been good? 2, maybe 3?
It was good just before the Euros, that season before. I think it was 3 seasons ago. He was pretty good. But again, it's the injury record as well. And he's out now for a few months and stuff. And it's not... you need like an Andy Robertson. I think I'll be choosing Robertson instead of Shaw. Although he can be really good. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And, Harry Maguire's another one. And he probably would have done well at Aston Villa, Harry Maguire. But it's almost the pressure of his price tag, I suppose. But yeah, the recruitment at Man United is absolutely mind-blowing sometimes. It really, really is. Onana is just so unfortunate. He could become a really good keeper, but, I don't know about that guy.
I'll run through the team right now, in my opinion. I'm going to start with the goalkeeping. You've moved on David De Gea. I understand that. You're moving on £375,000 a week. I get it. I truly get it. You bring in Onana, and you've paid 60 million. You've paid ideally 60 million, and you've put him on a high contract as well.
Yeah,
Onana will get good. I don't think there's a bad keeper there. I've seen in glimpses that he can make very good saves, and his distribution we know is second to none. It's like having a CDM, to be fair, isn't it, with his distribution? Yeah. Now, I have no problem with that. But then you move on a goalkeeper called Matej Kovar to Bayern Leverkusen, and you bring in Altair. But right now, Kovar's miles ahead and could have challenged Onana and pushed Onana for that first team spot. So I never understood that move. Then the left back situation, Luke Shaw's injured. Malasia's got unspecified injury, which we found out is a throat injury. So unless you have thyroid problems or gland problems, I understand that concept of maybe what's going on. Luke Shaw's now injured. He's got a new contract that was just signed off last season, and now you're injured again. Funny how that works. And then you've got Malasia's injured. Then you've loaned out a potential world-class left back and then brought in a left back that's got injury problems for the last few seasons. Where is the logic in that? And
Yeah,
then you've got Martinez, who you've rushed back. He's injured, and it's showing that he's injured. He can't play. So I look at Martinez, and I think I have a comparison where people say, "Oh, you can't do that." But if you look at Bailly's first season, where he was amazing, tough, rugged, and then he gets injured, is that not the same comparison to Martinez? Then the second season kicks in, same thing. Plays a couple of games, injured. I'm seeing a consistent thing here now. And then you've got Varane, who's on 350 grand a week, and he can't stay fit for 15 games in a row. It'll be a miracle, it'll be an act of God if he stays injury free for 15 games in a row and starts 15 games. But 3 on 3 off is never, you're never going to build a solid back line around that. And he's just not good enough in the grand scheme of things. And people will be like, he's a Rolls Royce. A Rolls Royce that has a flat tire every week isn't good.
That's a good analogy. Absolutely. Varane, I mean, it came at a time where you finished second, and you bring him in when you finish second in the league, and you brought in Ronaldo and Varane in the same window, and Sancho. Was that completely wrong?
No, it's the same window. But that season you go to, which is the 21-22 season, when you bring him in 21. And that 21-22 season, he only plays close to 30 games. Yet again, there's a reason why Real Madrid move on certain players, because they know what's coming. And Man United will be like, yes, sir, please may I have some more. And then the right back situation is another one that fascinates me. It's another one that fascinates me. Whether people like Aaron or not, on Ten Hag's system, he's just not good enough. He is not good enough on the ball. Dalot gives you what you need, but you still need an upgrade to Dalot at some point. Can Dalot turn into what everyone's saying, João Cancelo? Maybe, but he needs time. And you're seeing that he's got potential. Then you look at the midfield. People are talking, Casemiro is the best CDM in the world. Casemiro was the best CDM in the world. You come to the Premier League now, which is a faster league, and we're seeing him get bypassed. You've signed Christian Eriksen, and Christian Eriksen is one of the greatest footballers I've seen on the ball. But off the ball, he's a liability. And we saw that in the final. The man he's supposed to be marking has left him for dead. And that's good. It's just not good enough. And then Scott McTominay can't get a game. Is he good enough to be Man United? No, but he's a great squad player, in my opinion. Fred, who's full of energy, should have been starting more games because he'll give you more on and off the ball to a certain extent. Then you've got Bruno Fernandes. People are complaining about Bruno Fernandes. Oh, he's not putting up the numbers. One, because under Ollie's system, he was given creative freedom to go and play wherever he wanted and able to create and affect the game. Under Ten Hag's system, he is limited to where his movements are. And that is a fact. You've brought in Mason Mount, who's a very good system player for what Ten Hag needs. He'll give you that discipline on and off the ball, but he's not a guy who's going to go out and get you 20 goals from non-set pieces, is he? And that's a fact.
No.
And you're running your best player in a pocket, you can't even get a game, which is Donny van de Beek. Then I move to the forward line. Garnacho's not ready. Palestri's not ready. Whether people like or not, they're just not ready. Ahmad is really, truly untested. People will be like, he had a great season in the Championship. Stepping up from the Championship to the Premier League is two different things. It's a massive gap. Højlund's the only looks like there right now who looks like he could play football. And Martial's playing for a contract or a new club, one of the two. And that's the reason his performance has been decent. And Man United are probably so stupid, they'll give him the new contract. Maybe grand, not on the same money he was before. They'll give him a new contract, and then he'll just basically do nothing for the next 4 years. I'm having to deal with at Man United. Rashford, that guy can hit the side of a barn right now. He goes from shooting every shot now to passing every ball. It's like there's no happy medium with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. 30 goals last season for Rashford was really, really good. And it is, as you say, it's top turning. There's no Fred. There's always an issue with one player. There's no player who's really reliable, really good and whether that's Ten Hag's fault, as you mentioned there, with Bruno Fernandes not being restricted now, or Mason Mount. And, that's another buy where I kind of thought, well, he's a very talented player, but you're sort of spending a lot of money on a player who's very low on confidence at Chelsea for £60 million. You just wonder if they're, I just kind of think sometimes, and I know they're not like for like, but this is what I mean by Man United, and like they get Casemiro, and I kind of think, well, what about Kepa and Thuram last season? Wouldn't he have been better than Casemiro to a degree? Maybe this is really simplistic. And then, Mason Mount, etc. But like Mohamed Kudus, I know they're not like for like. Just these cheaper players whose numbers are really, really high, and just being a bit more shrewd and pragmatic and using data more. It seems to just be like Casemiro, and it doesn't seem to make any sense really.
Like Kefren Turan would have been absolutely magnificent buy. Moving in last season, you could have bought Sofran Amrabat, who I think would have suited the CDM role better. I think he would have suited. But now you're talking about play on a loan, and we don't know if we're going to make him permanent. And then I'm sitting there, and I've still got players on high wages, okay? And I'm like, how do you move them on? Because no one wants to buy that injury-prone player. Should Man United have renewed Luke Shaw's contract? No, they shouldn't have. Should Man United have renewed Marcus Rashford? Marcus Rashford was rewarded for a good season. And he's always had a steady career. 15 goals and assists, or maybe up to 20 every season for the last few years, which is what you want. But he's not a child anymore. He's 25.
Yeah.
I'd have to make, for instance, Kefren Turan was a good buy. You could have picked up Marcus Thuram this summer on a free transfer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get the Højlund transfer. I really do. But when I run through the fence, is Victor Lindelof good enough and they're looking to renew his contract? There's a reason him, Lindelof. He can't bully his way out of a wet paper bag. And that's the sad reality. It's making such poor decisions. When are you going to bite the bullet and actually take a gamble on an Antonio Silva? Oh, he's not ready.
Yeah, it's just the buys which just don't. And I think you alluded to about Real Madrid earlier about selling Casemiro at the time, and there's a lot of stuff like, we wanted him to stay and all this kind of thing. But if you're Real Madrid and you wanted the player to stay, he would have stayed there. There's no way they would have done everything to keep him here. But the fact he moved over, and he had a good season last season, Casemiro. But I think we can kind of see the decline now. He's not in his peak years, and he's on ridiculous wages.
He's 32 in February.
It's 32 in February. Yeah, it's getting on now.
Yeah, I mean, this summer and the following summer 24 and summer 25, you're going to have to buy, in total, you're going to have to buy 2 midfielders, because Christian Eriksen and Casemiro. And then you're going to have to look at the centre-back line, which is Harry Maguire, Varane, and Lindelof. So you're talking 5 players that you could have, you shouldn't have even need to buy. Christian Eriksen had a decent season last season, and he was great. But the problem showed at the back end. Now we're hearing Christian Eriksen's not happy with his playing time at Man United. Yeah. What did you expect was going to happen when you signed him? It was always going to be a 1, maybe 2 season match with both of those players. And Casemiro's value, to be fair, what are you going to do? Where are you going to move Casemiro to? Where are you going to move Varane off to? At some point, Man United are going to have to take a hit on these players and look to buy better players. I mean, I like Antonio Silva. I like Gonzalo Ignacio. I think they're terrific. Jean-Claire Todibo's very good. I think they're brilliant players. Then I'm looking at centre-backs. I'm looking in the Premier League, and if there's any centre-backs I look at and think, yeah, he could do a really good job. Tomori, I think, could come to United and do a really good job, in all honesty. I think if Man United really wanted to gamble and really, really wanted to gamble, Levi Colwill would be a massive, massive buy if you could pull it off. I think he's got the potential to be a world-class defender. I think he's that good.
I think he'd cost 150 million. I think Chelsea, or 160 or something like that for Lever, because I think he signed a new deal as well when Brighton wanted him, and they'd be Antonio Silva has a release clause of 100 million euros, but you're going to find a lot of competition for him.
Would you believe up until you just signed a new contract, right?
Yeah.
What his release clause was before in the last contract?
Is this Levi Colwill?
No, not Levi Colwill. Antonio Silva.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. What was it?
12 million euros.
Was it really?
I've been singing for this kid for over 12 months. I thought if Man United could pick him up on that 12 million euros release clause, he would light up the league. He would really light up the league. But they didn't. 12 million euros you can sacrifice to buy a player as good as him. And they just didn't bother, in all honesty. And now you're seeing what's going to happen. We're going to have to pay 100 million for a guy who we could have got for 12 million. Ignacio's got a 35 million euros buyout on his clause. You could have had Kim Min-jae in the summer, who would have cemented that defence. Again, another player United didn't move for because they prioritised. I think Man United could have left their squad as it was, picked up Kim Min-jae and Harry Kane, and you would have seen improvements in the entire team. The midfield did.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think they told him to wait because they just had run out of money, basically. I think they were expecting a bit more for the takeover, but that would have been like an extra 50 or something. And yeah, Harry Kane is one they wanted 100%, but I think they were a bit afraid to brief it too much in case they didn't get him, kind of thing, because it makes them look bad. A bit like Liverpool and Jude Bellingham, if they get saying, "Oh, we really want Bellingham," and it didn't happen, now they're in their face, kind of thing. But I'm inclined to agree. Mason Mount it's a luxury signing. He could go on to become brilliant, I don't know, but just on the face of it, he's a signing you make when your team's really, really good and you need a bit of competition with a potentially elite Premier League player. But it wasn't a priority position, Mason Mount. It doesn't seem a priority position. And he played on the wing, I think, actually, the last game.
I don't think he even knows where he's going to end up playing some games. I think we're so bad right now, players don't know where they're going to be playing. I think if you have a fully fit squad, okay, you have a fully fit squad, no injuries. We know Man United have had injuries since the 14th of August till currently. But if you have a fully fit squad, everyone at your disposal, no Man United conflicts within that squad.
Yeah.
Who starts and who doesn't? That's the question.
Well,
because Casemiro you think is going to start, but then does Mount start? Does Eriksen start? Does Bruno start? Then you've got Amrabat. Where are you going to fit Amrabat into? Then you've got Kobe Mainoo who's developing. Hannibal's that's come through. So you've got players that have kind of developed and come through, and you're wondering where are they going to fit in this Man United team? Then you've got the wing problem, middle problem, left wing problem. Like, it has to be solved, and I don't know if Man United have quality. They have quantity, but it's quality I think they lack.
100%. I think they need to bite the bullet of a director of football. I don't know if they'd ever do it, to be honest. I can't imagine them doing it, but that seems to be the right way. It's been going wrong for sort of 10 years now. You have new manager comes in, you have the lift off, you're back in Champions League, and that was tremendous, win the League Cup and stuff. But then it's like now the circle's starting. You kind of think, oh, maybe we've broken the cycle, but then now you can say, oh no, we're doing the same thing again, and sort of to drop off and stuff, and all the drama around, certain players and stuff, and it just seems to be chaotic, and that's the last thing you need at a football club. And I'd just say as well, the level of media scrutiny at Man United is like nothing I've never ever seen. And I do tweet about Man United a lot. It's not because I'm a fan of Man United, because I don't support them, but it's because of the level of media scrutiny and the level of insight around that club is unprecedented. You just do not see it at any other club. I keep seeing football players hiding their faces driving to Carrington. It's like 1997 again. I don't think any other club has that, where they sort of allow the paparazzi to do this, and the players are leaking information all the time, and it's just the culture just seems wrong still, and it needs to be. I don't know what Ralph Ragnick said. It needs open heart surgery, and I think that's still the case, unfortunately.
I mean, we talked about the director of football, and we obviously talked about John Murtough being director of football, but he's not good enough in the grand scheme of things. And we talked about, obviously, we do need a new director of football. I have to agree with you that would change things. Matt Hargreaves has come in. I mean, the window opened on the 12th of June. The domestic window opened on the 12th of June. He didn't start work till the 14th. Like, these are the things that I don't understand. Like,
yeah, there's a gross incompetence there, and I'm not sure. Maybe it's just one of them things where no one's really sure who's in charge, And I would say, I know people say, Glazers, there seems to be a criticism of Man United fans when they flag the Glazers and stuff, and then people don't understand is the turnover Man United have, and it's a substantial turnover, so they're self-sufficient. The Glazers don't put any money in, and
because they don't need.
They don't need to, but it's not. I feel like culture does drip down, and if you have that at the very top, where it's sort of apathy, and that will feed into down below, and regardless of how much money you spend. So there is something to be said about them and their aura in general, and their general presence at Man United, and how it contaminates every single facet underneath. Not by a huge amount, but it's certainly there, and it certainly doesn't help. And the whole takeover saga, to be honest, that can't help the players, the manager either, because some players might be thinking, well, will I be shipped off soon, etc.
Thing, and this is where people say, like, oh, the players have to shut that off and give 110 on the pitch. But sometimes you're wondering, hang on, I have a certain lifestyle here. There's a difference. Certain people make 100 grand a year, and they have a certain lifestyle. When you're making 100 grand a week, your lifestyle's a lot different. So you'll wonder if that lifestyle is going to stay the same. You're worried about the luxuries that you have and the high expensive schools that you may have for your kids and stuff like that, if you're going to have that when the takeover happens. Now, obviously, as a Newcastle fan, you were there in the Mike Ashley days until your takeover. You've seen that culture change. You've seen the shift. Now, obviously, I did say to you, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the shift in the takeover and where you are now, because I think as a journalist and as a Newcastle fan, you'll be able to explain a lot more eloquently about the changes that went through and what happened and the shift that what took place at St James's Park. Are Man United fans thinking are basically, because of this takeover, and we know how long this takeover could possibly take, are Man United fans are basically overthinking what Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim could possibly do? Or do you think that when they do take over, either or, that the shift will be very similar to Newcastle's?
I suppose it would depend on whether it's majority takeover or not. It's hard to say. Let's say it is Qatar because they're the ones who seem to be shouting the most and wanting to be spending the most money. I think, when our owners first came in, one of the first things I saw online, and it was very cleverly done. Of course, it was just, it's to get fans on side or whatever. But we had photographs just coming through social media of them cleaning the stadium and scrubbing the chairs and wiping the turnstiles and stuff like that, just cleaning the place, moving Alan Shearer's statue, which was outside the premises of St James's Park, into its premises again. It's little things like that. You just kind of get you feel like you get a bit of your club back when you see things like that and you see a general duty and care. It doesn't have to be buying Mbappe. It can just be small things like that. The roof dripping at Old Trafford and that kind of thing. It shouldn't be happening.
It really is embarrassing.
It's Old Trafford and it's just a bit of duty and care. And I think when you have that and you're showing a certain standard. I remember back in the Mike Ashley days, there's a famous picture that goes around where they're basically the players are calling down in what looks like an Argos paddling pool. It's like a inflatable paddling pool. And I think there's a picture of them using bins to cool down as well. Or maybe that's completely wrong. But there's certainly a paddling
No, there was a big green bin, the big wheelie bins.
Big wheelie bin.
Yeah, they basically had it filled with water and ice to cool down. It's true.
That you see stuff like that as a football player. If you're at a club and you're cooling down in a recycling bin, how can you take anything else seriously? How can you possibly, the dressing rooms was like championship standard. So there's all these little things when they come together, when you see them enhanced and patched up, it seems small on the outside, people looking in going, oh, what does it matter? But it really, really does, because culture in football is so important. If you get the culture right, the rest will follow. Brighton have a great culture. Look at their team sheet. I think the valuation of their squad must be about, I don't know, €5 million. Obviously not that little, but do you know what I mean? It's like,
it's probably they paid out the entire squad. They probably paid out about 50 million for the entire squad. And if you look at the value of it as an asset on paper, based upon market value, it's probably worth 500 million.
Yeah, it's that's their MO, and they do it so well. And I'm sure the winning culture and the exciting attacking football, that identity and Man United's identity is all wrong. It reeks of come here, you'll get an out of proportion wage, and we'll feed you to the lions, being in the media if you start to perform poorly. So you better look out for number one and start to brief the media yourself to cover your own back. That's what's wrong with Man United, and it's not just about. I mean, director of football will help, but yeah, I say the culture, and I think people overlook that a lot. How important having that culture, those small, tiny details, which just help have a bit of pride and respect about the club. So yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate that it's happening this. I mean, as a Newcastle fan, I think you're in direct competition with us for sort of fourth spot and that stuff. So but.
Actually, it's a weird one, because at the start of the season, you're talking about the competition. I don't see the competition, in honesty. I think there is Eric Ten Hag said era's come to an end, and I do believe it's going back to the early days of the Premier League now, with Arsenal, Man United, Newcastle. Eras do come to an end. Chelsea's era has come to an end. I feel City's era is now coming to an end, because you're taking away key players out of that team and you're seeing it's declining, and they're losing games left, right, and centre right now.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, and for instance, Liverpool era has come to an end to a certain extent. Yes, they're picking up wins, but they're not invincible as they once were. You could turn up to Anfield right now and beat Liverpool. I think it's there to be beaten because that midfield just isn't good enough. I think the defense is not good enough. Van Dijk is a shadow of himself. To be fair, it's like Varane. He's a shadow of himself. And I think these teams no longer, their eras have come to an end. And I'm seeing a culture shift in terms of what clubs are coming up. And this reminds me of the 90s in the Premier League, where Villas were there. You had your Newcastles, your Man United, your Arsenals. And I see that. And your Tottenhams were always there, around there.
Yeah.
But Ange, you've taken out the greatest striker out of Tottenham. And how is it that 11, 12, 13, 14, up to 18 players are stepping up now? It's not on one player. It's on the entire squad. Ange has done a brilliant job so far. Where he'll finish at the end of the season is different. But I think the culture change for me, the top three, I think not this season, the following season is going to be completely different to what everyone thinks it's going to be. I genuinely feel unless Man City do some major heart surgery, I think the culture change next season will be completely different in terms of Premier League. The 24-25 season I'm talking about. Because Ten Hag will be his third season and he's going to have to deliver. It'll be Arteta. I think it would not surprise me if Arsenal win the league this year. It would not surprise me at all.
So Gary Neville predicted. I think when, because of Liverpool's owners and stuff, they're sort of self-sufficient. I think when Klopp goes, I think that could be the end for them. And maybe ditto with Man City as well. When Pep goes, I think that's because they're so elite. But it's been sort of 6 years now where they've sort of had the top, and it does seem perhaps it's sort of they're looking, towards the end of their time. But yeah, I'm all for traditional Premier League looking table with Aston Villa, Newcastle, Arsenal. It's good sentimentality and stuff, isn't it?
You're seeing the culture. You're seeing the shift in the eras, and that's the reality. I do expect this season Newcastle will finish top four, in my opinion. I think the following season, I think they'll really push that title challenge. There is a possibility they could do it this season. To be fair, I really do think they'll push further than they did last year.
We are going into it hoping for. A lot of fans think we'll finish about sixth, even before the season started, because of the Champions League and having that.
And I don't think so anymore.
But yeah, it's been an awful very first start, but we're sort of clicking in tune now. So let's see. You could be right. I think fifth or sixth. Let's see. But I could get Champions League this season, fifth spot, depending on how things go in this tournament. So yeah, I don't know. It's nice to see us do well in any case, because it's still a bit of a shock when you see us. Oh, I'm looking forward to Newcastle playing this weekend. We could win this game, and it's something I haven't.
You look forward for years.
No, I've now, 2004 it went downhill, and I was sort of 12 then, and 11, 12, and it's just been shit since, up until 2 years ago. It's just been, we're probably going to lose this game, or what's going to happen now? Like Kieran Dyer and who was it?
Lee Bowyer.
Yeah, punching each other or something weird going on, and it's just been sort of chaotic. But
honestly, your pain is what I feel now. In all honesty, you just can't wait for players to snap at each other on the pitch at Man United. To be fair, I think they showed a little bit of character, which is something I think the team hasn't showed for years. They showed some character on Saturday gone to fight back and get that win. And sometimes you just need some character, and they showed it. They didn't give up. Even in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, they pushed on. They tried everything. And of all people, to score the 2 winning goals was the guy they wanted to sell in the summer. So it was.
Yeah, it was. I think he's a great player, McTominay, but I don't watch Man United too extensively. But for Scotland and stuff, maybe it's just about unlocking him, I suppose, like Pogba back in the day.
Exactly. So, Jack, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I know we've touched on a lot, and thank you so much. I know we'll have you on again, and I know we've talked about spaces. You're going to obviously hit some of the recorded spaces on what we're doing. So, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get this all aired out, obviously, and we'll obviously look to bring you on the spaces so you can have an amazing say on the transfers, because I know you're going to do some transfer stuff on spaces as well soon.
Thank you very much for having me, mate.
For guys who don't follow Jack, it's at JAC_ and then his last name Talbot. So please give him a like and a follow, and switch on the notifications for him. He's absolutely brilliant when he reports on transfers. So keep tuned and stay out of the Anfield watch. And everyone will know